I'm Bob Greenberger, and I'm moderating this panel. Thank you. I'm doing this largely because I worked at Marvel. I've read the Marvel stuff since I was 7, 8 years old. So I know something about these characters and these creators. To my right is a man who probably doesn't need any introduction, but he is a writer, he is an editor, he is a publisher, he is a retailer, and I do believe he's about to get his license to drive the Zamboni. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Waid. Mark, let me start with, it always used to be, you know, good versus evil, right. Us versus them, right. Editors versus freelancers, yeah. You know, fans versus retailers, whatever. It's like, who do you fight against now? Because you're all of it.
I know, I have no one to rail against anymore. So I know. It's going to be, what's cool about this is that, again, I didn't really set out to do any of this. It was just, you know, when, as far as freelancing, it's still going well, and it always has been going well, but even when I was working at Boom Studios, I was sort of feeling the itch of trying to get into digital and trying to expand the digital frontier, and so that's how Thrillbent was born. But for those of you who weren't paying that close attention 2 or 3 years ago, it was apparently a very controversial move because a lot of retailers thought that that meant that I was trying to take their business or that I was trying to make it about digital versus print. And I kept saying, well, no, they can coexist, and as luck would have it, in one of those rare moments, I was actually right when I predicted the future, and I said, it will work to feed into each other so that print will help digital and digital will help print. And sure enough, sales on print are way up. But I still get that backlash every once in a while of, he hates print. No, I don't hate print. I just spend more time in comic stores than I had in church, you know. It was synonymous kind of in my life. So when the opportunity came to buy into an existing retail store, and it wasn't, I mean, yes, it was all, part of it was just so I could be able to say, see, I'm a retailer now too, so leave me alone. But part of it also was sort of get that idea of, okay, well, I say that digital and print can work together to elevate each other and to move the medium forward, but that's just theory in my part. You know, I can prove half the equation with digital, with Thrillbent, but I can't prove the other half unless I get in there and get my boots on the ground. And so now I'm, you know, I am along with my other partners, I am a retailer and proud of it. And really no better way to start your retail career than the week when you have to spend the whole week explaining to people why you don't have enough copies of the lenticular covers for them. Thanks, Thanks, DC. Thanks.
All right, it's a Marvel panel. I'm going to try and keep a lot of the questions Marvel.
And we are waiting for Bagley and Ed McGuinness. They are on their way, but they're not feeling too well this week. I'm sure they'll be here soon.
So, before Thrillbent, you actually wrote some digital comics for Marvel.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like, going from drawing from the fairly static comic page to the infinite canvas?
It was really interesting. I mean, what happened was it was actually contiguous. What happened was Joe Quesada and I have been friends forever. And he knew that I had been looking at doing digital comics, and we'd both been looking at the same French artist named Balak. Right. Who is, for those of you who haven't seen, go Google Balak, B-A-L-A-K, or you can find a link to his site on the Thrillbent site. And he, more than anybody else, helped us really wrap our heads around what can make a comic a digital comic and yet not lose the essence of what comics are. In other words, not motion comics, not limited animation, but what is that vision? And Joe and I both been looking at Balak's work, and he knew I'd been looking at his work. And Joe and I was looking to launch this venture, so he said, well, what about we do, you know, you come aboard and help us figure out what Infinite Comics should look like. And I said, I'd be happy to, and, you know, because one hand feeds the other. Like the Marvel guys were really good about saying, hey, look, Mark is doing this stuff, but he's also doing Thrillbent, go look at that. And same with Thrillbent, hey, we're doing the Thrillbent stuff, but also look at the Marvel Infinite Comics. Especially for a mega corporation like Marvel, it was really a very friendly gesture on their part to sort of spread around the promotion and let us sort of feed off of it. So, right.
Okay. Before I get to the other questions, this is a true fanboy question. so forgive me, but I'm looking in the back, and my question is, if Black Bolt speaks, how will Superman feel? Can you understand it?
Yeah, he could, but well, I guess that's probably between them. Yeah. Oh, that's a great costume, by the Black Bolt costume. Very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Don't talk.
All right, now, you had written for Marvel in the past, you went off, you've did a number of things, including the Boom Run with Indestructible and all. But now you're back writing 2 monthly books.
Yeah.
What is it? What's the appeal of the Marvel Universe to you as a writer?
That on a creative level, especially now, the way that Quesada and Dan Buckley, the publisher, and sort of set everything up, it really is a very creative place to be, and there's not a lot of editorial dictation to be. Everybody knows it's not my sandbox. I'm playing in somebody else's toy box, and I as long as I put the toys back where I found them when I'm done, I didn't break them too bad. That's kind of, I kind of know after all this time what the rules are that you can and can't do with the Marvel characters. But that said, they're always encouraging me to break those rules, and nobody says, well, here's what you're going to write in Daredevil this month. Nobody said, here's what you're going to write in Hulk this month. Instead, I pitch the ideas, we talk about them, and if I get yes 95% of the time, and the 5% I don't, it's a yes, but what about this instead, or what have you thought about this? It's a very collaborative place to be.
All right, so you get the call, you're offered Daredevil, you've not written character solo previously.
Right.
You've got an experience as a writer, but you're sitting down with a character you're relatively unfamiliar with as a writer.
As a writer, okay.
So what do?
You go back to first principles. You look at that first story, you look at the first run of books, you go back through the history of any of those characters, and you look at the stuff that was, it's not always just the first stuff, but certainly the prime stuff. It doesn't mean you're trying to recreate what the 1960s had. It doesn't mean you're trying to do like a karaoke version of what Stan and Jack or Stan and Bill Everett or any of those guys did. What it means is you're trying to just strip all the barnacles away and just get back to first principles and what made this character work. And I honestly think that my job, when I sit down to write Hulk or Daredevil, at the core of it, my job is to remember what it is I love about these characters on a personal level and communicate that as best I can to you. And with Daredevil, Hulk is harder to get a handle on. Daredevil was easy because of Marty Pasco.
Explain.
Marty's never written Daredevil comics.
Right.
But Marty, who was a writer of the 1970s and 80s, I just worship Marty. Amazing writer. Marty wrote a Daredevil short story that appeared in one of those Marvel.
Oh, the Marvel paperback novels of the 1970s.
Yeah, there was one that was called the Marvel Superheroes, and there were like 4 short stories
Right.
in there. There was a Daredevil one that was written by Kyle Christopher. It turned out was Marty working under a pseudonym. And the story starts, it was phenomenal. The story starts just with what it's like to be Matt Murdock waking up in the morning. Like what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you sense? What do you the rain and the smell of coffee, and just that. I'm not doing it justice, but it really put you in the head of really trying to see the world through those senses. And that's what I remember mostly about that story, and that's what I wanted to bring to our run is, I'm not kidding you, wherever I am, wherever I go, most every time I see something new or something I haven't seen before or heard before, I'm always thinking to myself, how would Matt Murdock process this? What would his take on this? What would this seem like to him? And that to me is the fun of the book.
And did you do a lot of research into what it's like to be a blind person?
I did. As a matter of fact, I talked with the Blind Institute that Steve Wacker, the editor, set me up through. And I also met at a convention about 6 months in. I met a woman who teaches the blind, and so she was just like a wife of a retailer, and just happened to be there. But we had a good long conversation about what that was like. And it's the thing that was impressed upon me most was, and I kind of knew this, but it's nice to have it underscored that I was in the right direction, is don't treat it like a disability that is a constant block for you. It's a thing. It's a disability. It is a disability, but you persevere. You don't let it rule your life.
Okay, and how does that compare with the kind of research you had to do to understand how the legal system works? Because Matt Burdick periodically does counsel people on the law.
Yeah, that's what you have Mark Guggenheim for. That's what you have. You have comics writer Mark Guggenheim / lawyer Mark Guggenheim for. He's on speed dial. It's, you know, I take the same approach that Stan and Jerry Conway and a lot of other guys who've written Daredevil in the past have taken, which is that you want to try to be very, very faithful to the law, but not to the point where it stifles your story. Okay. And you kind of have to give it some leeway. Also, especially nowadays, nobody wants 12 pages of Matt Murdock in a courtroom, because that's not, comics don't do that well. Television does it better and for free. And so that's why I took the tack I took of Matt's, the way Matt's practice works now is he doesn't represent you directly in court. He will, however, advise you if you want to take on your own case, but no other lawyer will take it for some reason, or you know you can't afford a decent attorney or something. Matt will represent you and teach you how to represent yourself in court.
Okay. One of the core things from the beginning of Daredevil was the relationship between Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson.
Yeah.
And you've had Foggy ill. Yeah. And pretty much, you know, that relationship really isn't there at the moment. Did you do that intentionally to explore them separately? Or? No,
actually, it was actually to explore them together even more because yes, he's not around the offices anymore. Foggy isn't, but I think he still gets as much screen time. And when I was asked if this was something I would be interested in exploring in Daredevil, it wasn't doing something with Foggy and cancer wasn't my idea, but I was not averse to it. The only condition I asked for was, can I, you know, I don't want to kill him in 3 issues. And I don't want this to be like some sort of instant fatal disease. Right. I want to instead explore the relationship between 2 guys who both have chronic conditions. Now, you know, Matt has his depression issues, and Foggy has his cancer, and now there's 2 guys who need each other's help in ways that they didn't before. And that to me, that has brought them together as characters, I hope.
Your run on Daredevil is certainly an organic outgrowth of what came previous. Yeah. On the other hand, when you got Indestructible Hulk, that was almost, I mean, you really had to reset a status quo for that character. Yeah. So what were the challenges here?
That was harder because that was more of a left-hand turn from what had come in the series. The upside was that on a tonal level, Hulk has been all over the map for 25 years, whereas Daredevil's been just relentlessly grim and urban and noir. So at least I had that sort of flexibility. But the challenge was, okay, Marvel said, well, do what you did with Daredevil with Hulk. And I said, I don't know what that means because there's no funny banter. It's, you know, it's not, there's not really a supporting cast. I don't really know what that means. So I dug and I dug and I dug. I was trying to find some sort of similarity between the approaches, and I realized, okay, no, there is a similarity, which is both of them now. And Bruce Banner talks about this in the first issue. Both of them, like Matt, are guys who have hit bottom and stopped shoveling. You know, they both decided what I've been doing over the last X number of years to deal with my condition and deal with my stuff, it ain't working. So perhaps I should try something different for a change. What's the word? You know, again, and then what that does for me as a writer is it lets me set a new tone, but it doesn't change the character so fundamentally that the next guy who comes along and does the series is stuck with something. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, I'll be on Hulk for as long as I can possibly be because I love it, but someday somebody will be writing Hulk and they'll go, we don't like this whole setup. I didn't box him into a corner, it just lets you take the character in a different direction.
And, all right, for Daredevil, you studied legal stuff, right. You studied being blind. What did you have to do to bone up, to pull off Banner and the work he and his 4 associates are doing there?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me what I had to know to be a really angry guy.
Oh, no, you were naturally.
That was, who do we get to write Hulk? Who was really angry and understands what it's like to explode at things? Oh, I get Mark Waid to do that. But the science of it was just, I mean, again, I love science. I love writing science characters. I love, and so it really is just fun delving into, and always, every day, I have added all of the major scientific websites to my web feed and stuff, so that every day when I check, you know, the RSS feed to see what new scientific developments have happened today, and how can they maybe fuel an idea for a Hulk story a couple months down the road. That's it.
All right. Joining us just now, Mr. Mark Bagley. So I'm going to give Mark a moment to catch his breath and, you know, grill Mark for a moment here. I mean,
I'm sorry I'm late. I'm very embarrassed. I'm like anally on time, and nobody came and got me. And
that's why you can do 6 books a month. That's right.
So
right.
I apologize.
Of our panelists, you're the longest tenured guy. You know, you've been Marvel since the tryout book. You know.
Not only longest tenure.
Look back. How has the company changed for you? I mean, you know, you're a working artist. You've had contracts. You've been, you know, you had a long relationship. Managements have come and gone, but you know,
it's really the same shit, different day. I mean, it is. It's just comics. It's for me, especially for the artists. I mean, the writers, they have to deal with a whole lot of political and a whole lot of, you know, interference. No offense to any editors in the room, scum. But the artists mostly, you know, you get the stories, you sit down and you do your stuff. Now, whether you work on tablets now, you know, or still working on pencil and paper like a Cro-Magnon, like me. You know, it's just the idea of actually being able to just sit down and draw for a living is thrilling. You know, the mechanics are faster now between scanning and email. I hate having pencils inked. You know, now we can, you know, you scan it, you send it out, and they print it out what's called blue line, full-size sheets, and the inkers ink the blue line. And it's great. It's very fast, saves in FedEx charges, but you don't have the finished thing that was printed in the comic book. You don't have the original page. You've got the pencils, which are fine. In fact, they're better than when they're inked now. But, you know, things like that bother the hell out of me, but that's faster. The idea of, you know, I mean, when I first started Ultimate Spider-Man with Brian, you know, we were on the phone with each other like a couple times a day, or, you know, every couple of days anyway. Now it's like we text back and forth, you know. Nobody talks to freaking anybody. You know, you sort of miss that, especially when you live in Georgia. You know, I don't see anybody in this business. That's the reason why I come to these damn things. You know, aside from Mark, I like most of the guys in the business. So. And I'm sorry I'm late. I am a funny guy. So anyway, but that's the main thing. It's mainly the mechanics, the fundamentals of what I do. Isn't involved, except for maybe the script writing. You know, now it's full scripts instead of plots. You know,
did that change for you when you and Brian started Ultimate?
I was doing some full scripts before Brian, but it transformed over the course of it. It would seem like it was overnight almost. But it's funny. You give most of the new young guys are all very talented, and all. You give them a plot like they used to give us when I first started back in the Stone Age. And they'd be jumping out windows because you'd get a 6-page plot for a 22-page story. And the idea was, okay, this happens between pages 2 and 7. We need this all to happen. And the penciler got in there and he did all the storytelling, all the visual close-up, the establishing shot, the, you know, the what the hell moments. And we got somebody else late. Later than me, you rat bastard. Now it's full script, and which dumbs it down for me a little bit, but lets you concentrate on the penciling, I think, a little bit more.
I do it. We gotta follow up on that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, because again, when I'm working, I do both. Sometimes I'll do, depending upon what the artist feels most comfortable with, I'll either do plot, where you basically just, like you said, just give like a synopsis of the story, and then I go back and add dialogue later, or I'll do full script. You know, on a fulfillment level, I personally prefer full script, not because I need control, but because I know that then the job is done. You know, like it's a closed loop. Once I do a full script, I don't have to worry. When I do a plot, it means that then you'll turn in the pencils, and boy, when they come in and they've got to be inked the next day, I better be funny that day. You know, I better be on. I better have the right line of dialogue that day. But I also love working plot. When I do plot, I worry that I'm letting my artist do too much of the heavy lifting unfairly. And I don't know, I mean, do you feel like you're having to do too much of the heavy lifting when you...
It's been since I did it by plot. No, it just seemed to be the way to do it. And
yeah.
The thing when you're working off a full script is the writer doesn't get he gets the pages and goes, oh yeah, oh that's cool, you know, I can do that sort of thing. You know, there's the occasional, oh shit, how am I going to write that? Script that, but you know, I find it to be a stronger way of doing it. To be honest with you.
I think you get a more organic, right, when you plot.
Unless the writer's really, really good visually, like Brian's really, really good visually. He's got a really good storytelling sense.
Yeah.
You know.
But a lot of guys don't, and it's not even necessarily a fault. It's just the way the writer brain works.
Right. So.
We are now complete. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ed McGuinness.
And that's our panel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
All right, Ed, since we're talking about the plot versus script style of drawing, I mean, do you have a preference as the artist?
I've really only worked from script style. I mean, you know, I work. I don't know. I really like to try to work from plot and, you know, see what happens because I think
You don't have a gun in the house, do you?
I don't think there'd be just more. I'd probably be more inventive with what's going on, you know. But working from a script when you hit a deadline, you can put it in autopilot if you have to. So I think that helps.
Okay. Mark, since you've done both, as the artist, when you're doing plot style, do you actually challenge yourself to put something in to surprise the writer?
Not like that.
I don't mean it in a bad way.
Holy crap, she's naked!
What's
You
the
know?
topic of my story?
You know, not like that. You do challenge yourself to frame it as interestingly as possible. You know, and you know when you get a full script, sometimes you just look at it and you go, wait a minute, headshot after headshot after headshot after headshot. And you're like, no. Like I said, it's been so long since I actually did it that it'd probably be as hard for me as it would be.
But you still have, you have a certain, I mean, you have a certain degree of flexibility with both you guys, with
Oh,
both writers.
absolutely.
I mean, absolutely.
Most writers. There's some writers. Some writers are real pains in the ass.
Some writers are like treat you like art robots, and that sucks.
Yeah,
That's,
I don't work with them.
No, you shouldn't.
You know,
It's a collaborative medium.
I'm too old.
Even when I turn in a full script, it's worth my email and my phone number is at the top of every page. It's like, call me if you got a better idea, a better way of framing it, a better way of pacing it. Have at, you know, it's art. It's not my story anymore. The moment it goes to you, it's our story.
Right. 9 years of working with Brian over the course of about 9 years, I redrew exactly the total of about 2.5 pages. One thing was a sequence that I just didn't get what he was doing, and I just sort of thought of a better way, and I did it. And he really wanted to have this one thing. It was like a half a page of redrawing. And another thing was, I just got tired. I was tired, maybe a little lazy, and I found an easier way of doing something, which did it just as well, and y'all would have never known. But, you know, Brian called me on it, and he says, you know, I really had this, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a pain in the ass. X-Men were falling out of the sky with it. And, you know, and so I really kind of wanted that last, you know, so, okay. You know, so, but he is cool with it. It's Brian and most writers. I've never worked with Mark, but
We can fix that.
We're working on that.
I'd like to. But it is fun when you just, you know, wait a minute, no, it'd be better if I did this, you know? And sometimes I usually don't even call her. Maybe I'll send her an email and go, hey, I think I'm doing this, or I'll finish the page and send it in with a little, oh, by the way, I did this, you know, just in case. And it is kind of fun to writes back, goes, oh my God, that's so good. You know, my nipples are hard.
Now, Ed, because you have not done a lot of plot style, but in some ways, when you do the millions of covers that you do, you don't get a script. You get some sort of an idea for what the cover should be.
I do covers because sometimes I don't get script.
Yeah.
But when you get the scene description for the cover, do you try and come up with better ways to tell it than that, or is there a particular approach you have to taking that synopsis or
For a cover?
Yeah.
It's funny, with covers it can go one of two ways, like, you know, like a lot, recently I've been working with Steve Wacker, and, you know, he'll have like a real specific idea, you know, let's have Spider-Man fighting over, and I'm like, all right, well, I mean, that's not real specific, but whatever. It just depends.
No, Steve said he would be, but it's a close one. No, his helmet, you can see Spider-Man reflected.
Yeah, that's
kind
very
of
specific.
very specific.
Yeah, that's where I'll challenge. And you know, sometimes I've gotten things that are really specific, but then I'll see the story and I'll be like, hey, we could do something totally different. So I'll give you your sketch, I'm gonna give you mine.
Yeah.
You know, and it was actually, I mean, this actually happened recently where I literally did a cover on spec for a story that didn't even exist, and he bought it.
Wow.
And they're gonna write the story, because I was just like so inspired, but.
You know, that's how it used to be.
You are new.
Going all the way back to going all the way back to pulp magazines, painters would sometimes come up with paintings, and then the editor would buy it and assign it to a
I
writer.
think that's still kind of how Daredevil is. Monsters, what? Werewolves in the story, what? So it's that's when a writer like myself falls far enough behind where we need covers. So I'll say, yeah, put zombie and what's the one with it coming up, like the werewolf and zombie and Frankenstein and Satana on the cover. I'll figure out a story.
Satana?
Satana.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Chris and I do with that a lot more than we ought to. But yeah.
Okay. Let me ask something for the three of you, and you've got the writer's perspective, and you guys have the artist's perspective. You've all enjoyed long relationships with a particular talent. You know, you and Jeff Loeb and Brian, and in your case, you know, say Peter Krause on
Sure.
the
In
In series.
the end series, irredeemable and now insufferable. Yeah.
What are the benefits to having that kind of a long-term relationship with a co-creator?
It's shorthand. I mean, that to me, that's really shorthand.
Trusting each other, you
Yeah.
don't have to talk.
I don't have to make the phone call to make the change, because I totally.
And there's hugs.
Yeah.
But it really is that sense of I don't have to worry about over-explaining what I'm trying to get across here because we speak the same language at this point. So it is trust. Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to make that change, you're not going, because it really will bother you. It'll be in the back of your mind, I really want to do that, but should I do it? If I do it, is it going to, you know, if I do it, I get a whipping? You know, it's like, you know, with somebody you worked with forever, you think, yeah, he's not going to care about that. He's really going to like this, one or the other, you know? You know, in fact, I just did an issue with Carl Kiesel with Fantastic Four. He took over from Matt Fraction, and I can't remember what it was, but I changed something, and what was it? I can't remember now. It went so fast. But he kind of emailed me back. I kind of wanted it the other way. I'm like, okay, you know, so we'll do that. But,
So, with Matt stepping back from Fantastic Four now, what you are staying on as the artist.
no, I'm leaving too.
You're leaving too?
Like, I'm out.
We'll miss you.
Yeah, 13 is my last issue. I'm already drawing off the catechism. We just effed up New Jersey, but nobody's gonna notice because it's New Jersey. Yeah, but,
All right, artistically, how different is the Marvel Universe from the Ultimate Universe?
yeah, you asked me that question online. I was thinking about that. I'm like, nah. Artistically, nothing's different from me. I go at drawing something just with the skills and what little talents I have, and you know, I don't intellectually take an approach to something. You know, Stuart Im's like the only guy I know per project looks absolutely different if he wants to. You know, to me, it's just all organic. You know, there's the things. You know, Peter Parker, or now Miles. You know, Miles is a skinny little 15-year-old black kid.
Yeah.
You know, so I draw him different than Peter Parker.
Oh,
You
thank
know?
goodness.
You know, the structure, it's just drawing, it's all construction, you know? The most fun I had at DC was the times I got to draw Power Girl and Supergirl standing next to each other. You know, it's the hell of dichotomy.
Okay, so let me ask Ed. Since you helped create the visual, you know, for the look of the Red She-Hulk, how can you visually differentiate her from Green She-Hulk?
The contrast.
Yeah, pretty much the same exact. Like if she's not in color, you're probably not gonna know. No, I mean I gave it, you know, the red streaks in the hair, and I think the better question would be the Red Hulk versus the Green Hulk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of very deliberate decisions that I made with the character, because I mean, you know, first off, I'm on the Hulk. I want to draw the Hulk. I don't want to draw the Red Hulk.
Yeah.
You know, but then, you know, I designed it and I actually like really fell in love with the character. But the first thing, you know, he's General Ross. We knew that the entire time. But you can't have him running around with a mustache because that's ridiculous. So,
Kind of gives it away.
yeah, well, my solution to that was when he changes, he loses the mustache, but he also loses his eyebrows. Nobody noticed that. So nobody ever asked me, why does he not have a mustache? Nobody ever asked me, versus like, you know, the natural power that the Hulk would have of like a, you know, like a...
No, but I think it comes across. I mean, again, just as a from outside looking in, it really comes across that they pass the silhouette test really nicely. Like,
Yeah,
that's the silhouette test view that if you're designing a character, you really want to be able to, in a perfect design sense, you want to be able to take a silhouette of that character and still be able to recognize him. Like if you can recognize a Spider-Man silhouette even as a silhouette,
Yeah.
be able to recognize Amanda Waller as a, oh wait, you can't anymore.
Tell me about it. I'm really,
So,
really
I'm so pissed off about that.
no more than me.
I can imagine. They just do that because that's what you're supposed to do as a cartoonist, as an artist, as a creator. You're supposed to create characters that have a unique look to them. That, and in a perfect world, like with Amanda Waller, to pick one example, it's a character's look that also is reflective of her personality, that is also reflective of her nickname, that is also reflective of her name, that is also, like, it all works together as an organic unit.
A good design tells a story.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I'll approach like any new book I'm working on with any character. I'll go back to like the original source material, like what were they trying to get across?
That's what you said before you showed up.
Yeah, what were they trying to get across? And like if I'm drawing Aquaman, I literally like put like a shell wave inside it on his hair. Just to push it, you know what I mean? I'll hide bats and Batman's sheen on his cape, just any stupid little thing to totally push the storytelling further.
Yeah.
Which leads me to, I mean, you're doing mutants now, so what are you doing to them visually?
It's funny because I'm just on the first issue now and I'm really like learning the characters. It always takes about, I think, 3 good issues for me at least to really get my shorthand for, or even like where I want to go. But you know, we're bringing Nightcrawler back, so Dave Carlin all the way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's one of the best costume designers
Ever.
Oh yeah,
Ever.
no
It's
question.
just ridiculous, like the levels like that he brought things. But I'm just having fun. I just want to stay true to the integrity of the characters. So, you know, I get so tired of like every other month Wolverine's new costume.
Yeah.
If it was my choice, I'd go back to Tan.
It's just the next action figure. It's okay. We got 1 million people, so let me see about some questions while we've got time. Yes, sir.
First of all, Mr. Waid, I want to thank you for making me go to comic book stores again.
Well, you're quite welcome. Thank you.
Every Wednesday I get off work, I walk to the comic book store, I get my rack, I go to the bar, I break out my iPhone, I put in my little redeem codes, I get them all down, I drink my beer, people walk by, is that guy reading comic books? And I pull up my beer and I say thank you. So,
all of
thank
this
you very
would
much.
have more impact if you weren't wearing a Lion Cat t-shirt.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, okay. True. He's not talking. But I really like the way you went with Bruce Banner, where he's feeling the hunger of becoming the guy. Like, how come Tony Stark gets all this attention
Right.
when I should be the guy that everybody should be looking at? And I kind of like the fact that with the new Avengers, there's a scene where Captain America and Iron Man started talking to each other, and Bruce Banner just stuck around and said, "No, I'm not going nowhere. Keep going with your plan."
That's the thing, man. We in the Marvel universe, we always talk ever since I've been reading Marvel comics. You always talk about Banner, Richards, Pym, and and Stark, and like that whole that whole super scientist group. But with very few exceptions, certainly in the last 15, 20 years, I can't think of a single time I've seen Banner try to do anything but try to cure himself. And so, and there's nothing wrong with that. I get why you do that, but like I said, when I got to launch the new series, it's like, you know what? That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I would like to see him sort of realize that, and we're getting, oh man, with like issues 15, 16, 17, there's a lot more of that friction of, man, Stark and Richards and all those guys, they always get the magazine covers, and it's not like he's petty, it's not like he's venal, but still, you'd want to be able to.
So my question is that the path that you guys intend to take Bruce Banner on, where he just keeps going in and becoming the leadership role that maybe Bruce Banner should have?
Yeah,
versus,
the whole motto is, Hulk breaks, Banner builds. That make it, that make some sort of karmic retribution for all the stuff that Hulk has broken over the years. Banner's gonna build.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Do they have more details? I don't get to the comic store.
No, it's
He's a lot smarter than he looks.
I know.
Our girl reporter here.
I just wanted to ask about Maria Hill, because
Yeah.
she's my favorite character.
She's
and
awesome. She hates Bruce.
I love it. I love it. It's the whole reason I started picking up the book, and then it was amazing, and I stuck with it. So I just wanted to ask how you approached writing her.
In that she hates Bruce. She's
How perceptive.
Well, she's a control freak. She's absolutely a control freak. So on some level, there is some sort of horrible karmic punishment that has been handed down to her that she is now in charge of Bruce Banner.
You hate women.
Yeah, no, they're much more interesting to write than men. Yeah. So really, that's the writing dynamic between the two of them, and the fact that Hill also hates Banner, but also knows that the more Banner likes you, the more Hulk is going to be inclined to listen to you once he's talked out. It kills her. So when Banner borrows $20, she has to loan him $20. You know, when Banner borrows her iPod and then smashes it, like, he just has to grit her teeth and smile. It's killing her. But then as you see in the, I don't know if you've been following the book, but
Yeah.
she gets her petty revenge every once in a while, dropping out of a plane and stuff.
Hands, any? I got three great guys up here. You must be burning with questions. Yes, sir.
Mark, you ever return to Captain America anytime for like a new series or a story or anything?
I don't know. I don't have any specific plans. I mean, if something came along, it would be interesting. It's hard. You know, and this gets back to the central theory of your panel, which is how things changed, how are things different. It is harder to write Captain America on, and this is no slam on Marvel or Disney or their corporate owners and stuff, but there's a sense, never been said out loud, and there's a sense that you can't really be as edgy and political with Cap as maybe you could have been in the 70s or 80s or even when I was doing it. And so that makes me a little more hesitant because to me, the only reason you would write Captain America is if you could really make a political statement, right or wrong. It doesn't mean you have to have him reflect your personal politics. But it seems to me like you want that character to really be involved in what's going on in the world. And it's just, there's so many levels of management and oversight right now. Marvel's very, very good about letting writers have their head, but I can see where you wouldn't want Captain America to do anything that would show up on Fox News the next day.
You mean like renouncing his Americanism? Or?
Exactly, like saying, no more American way, yeah.
Yes, in the back.
Okay, going with that theme, because as you said, there's certain things about the character that in Captain America that never been said out loud.
Right.
Back in, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s, Roger Stern made a statement of the character,
Yeah.
Cap for president.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to know, would you agree
Absolutely.
with the whole premise of Cap made his own statement in that book about his duty is to the American dream. He
Right.
doesn't get bogged down in politics. So in today's world, how would you go about, making that statement? Because I know I've read articles where writers have said, okay, one group of people wanted to see Cap going over and beating the crap out of the terrorists.
That's the fun part.
One Cap, the old Cap, beating up the skull and making speeches.
It's really hard. I don't mean to dominate. I'm sorry. Please, somebody think of a question for these other two guys real quick.
No, it's okay. I like the answers.
Here's the other thing, that things have changed too, and not changed at Marvel, but changed in the world. As somebody who has just passed his 50th birthday, I can tell you that I've never seen this country in my entire lifetime more polarized politically.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question about that. Not during the Civil Rights Movement, not during the Vietnam era, not any time like that I've seen the country so polarized left and right. And it would be really hard to write Captain America in any sort of scenario like that where half your readership doesn't feel like you're giving them the middle finger. Which is not the case, but that's the way it could very easily come across. I mean, from my own personal belief, and this is not something that I would impose, but my own personal belief is Captain America is a New Deal Democrat. which means he's a Reagan Republican, actually. But, but he's a New Deal Democrat because that's the era in which he grew up. That was the day of FDR, and that was the day of World War II, and that was the mindset of the day. So I don't think he's a hardcore, super conservative character. But you're right, if you don't write him as that, a lot of people get really upset. Or Mark Millar doesn't understand the character at all. There's another way of putting it. This F doesn't stand for Frank, whatever. That really annoyed me. But I'm not trying to get on a soapbox about that. I'm just saying that it's very hard to write those corporate-owned characters that are on beach towels and on lunch boxes and on underoos and stuff, and make some sort of, try to write them without making some sort of political statements going to alienate half the readership. If it's my own personal character, I have the right to alienate half the readership because it's mine. But if it's not, but if it's somebody else's sandbox, somebody else's toy, I don't have the right to tell you as a Captain America fan for your entire life that just because you are of a certain political affiliation, you don't get to enjoy the character anymore.
Good. Now.
I was curious, I'm not sure how much you're involved in other parts of Marvel, but because I was curious about any new development of the cartoons. I know it's probably a fine line of making things adult versus family friendly, but I guess I'd say definitely thumbs up to Avengers and thumbs down to like the new Hulk.
Are any of you guys touched on the animation?
No, we're touched. But
Would you like to?
No,
sorry, different division.
No, different, yeah.
Okay, let's see. In the back there behind Rogue. That's you. That's Rogue in front of you.
I need to ask you, this is my question is from our creative.
I'm so sorry.
My question was more, with all the Avengers books, would you ever consider writing an Avengers book down the road, or is team books not really your thing per se?
No, I kind of like team books.
Says the man who used to write Legion? Come on.
Well, I mean, anymore, I guess what I was
No,
asking.
I really like team books. I think it would be fun to take a swing at the Avengers at some point. But what Hickman has, here's what people understand about Jonathan Hickman. Not only is he a really good writer, not only is he a good, real solid visionary, but when he shows up at these editorial conferences with, and I talk about what I'm doing for Daredevil for the next couple of months, and then Matt Fraction will show up and say, here's what I'm doing Fantastic Four for the next couple of months. Hickman shows up with these notebooks out of the movie Seven.
What I meant was any Avengers book, not necessarily.
Oh, any Avengers book. You know what I'm saying? But he's got plans. What I'm saying is he's got plans for the entire Avengers universe
How?
that will take you through marriage and your first child. So maybe.
Actually, let me add to that and give these guys a question. When you're on an ongoing series, how far out do you want to know what's going on? Like Ed, you knew it was Thunderbolt Ross from the beginning with Red Hulk. I mean,
Yeah.
Does that help you as an artist, or do you want to be surprised?
No, you want to know what's going on. Because if you don't agree with it, then at least you have a chance to maybe have some influence on it, And I don't worry about what's going on a year from now when I'm drawing on a book, because usually you're not on the book. But if you are, that's why I say the writers have the harder job. I mean, they got to think about what's going to happen a year, 2 years from now. And when they're away from their desk, they got to have it mulling around their mind. I'll occasionally have a panel layout mulling around in my mind when I'm taking a shower. That really works. I don't know why.
It does.
But
That's
it's like I'm washing my hair going, oh yeah, if I change the angle looking down. And,
how many people find that some of their best ideas are like when they're in the shower or driving?
After my 6th year.
Yes, sir.
I think this is a question for, I guess, all three of you.
Oh, good.
It's about Infinite Comics. I really like Infinite Comics. I mean, I really like digital comics in general because I've never been able, I haven't lived near a comic book store since I was in college. But I noticed that Infinite Comics, for the most part, they're kind of like secondary to big events. Like when the Nova Infinite comic came out for Avengers vs. X-Men, it was kind of like a prelude.
Yeah.
And now you have these other ongoings. You have Wolverine.
Right.
I really like them, but they really don't seem to play factor much into what's going on in the Marvel universe. So, do you ever think there will become a time when these Infinite comics will be kind of like
Oh yeah, they're
first issues?
They're marching much closer to that. It's we're still trying to figure out the mechanics of the Infinite Comics to some degree, and it's also the idea that we just as we can't make things just for comic store customers because there's not, like you said, there's not comic stores everywhere. We also be cognizant and aware that not everybody's got an iPad, not everybody's got an iPhone. It's not every, you can't always,
Or cell phones.
or digital.
Right now, previous panel, Paul Jenkins was up here talking about the AR function that the Marvel's been exploiting. And he's talking about making that more part of the storytelling, but that's not going to happen yet until more people are reading the comics on tablets and cell phones, and you don't want to alienate people who aren't there yet, who are not comfortable with that, who don't want to hold their, tablet over printed page to get the code. Some people have taken out of the experience. So we're not there yet, but then again, in the old days, direct sales used to be this part of the business, and now it's the business. AR and the Infinite Comics is this part of the business, and that should grow and evolve over time.
Also, I have one other question for Mark Bagley. I don't know if you've recently, but if you follow Brian Michael Bendis on Tumblr, really good follow. He had kind of this, he got this angry outlash when someone kept asking about the end of the Ultimate Universe, because that's been rumored for a while. Cataclysm.
Right.
Does he usually have outbursts like that? He's
a cranky bastard. That's right. No, he's a sweetheart. He really does. He if he thinks somebody's messing with him, and trying to mess with his story, with his craft, then he gets really pissed really quick. I mean, years ago, he was going to have, I think, Flash Thompson come out as gay with Spider-Man, right? And some troll on some website put it out there that, oh yeah, he's going to have it. He was just guessing, that he was pissed him off so bad he decided he wasn't going to do it. He said, no, screw that. He was furious. He was bouncing on the table. He's a little guy. But he's unless you're really, or you go after one of his friends, and he will, especially online. My daughter, she forwards things to me, because I really don't do all the online stuff too much, but she watches all this shit. And somebody will say something about me and George, and Brian will, well, so it's kind of fun knowing they'll have me back on that.
All right, thanks. You're probably going to be our last question, so let's make it a great one.
No pressure. Ed's going to stay for another half hour.
No, we got to fill in for him.
Last panel that you were moderating, they were talking about the fact that current video and movie rights were sort of driving the way that the comics were actually being written and being drawn. That ultimately, that there's no ultimate consequence of any of the heroes' actions because, well, we might want to put them in a movie later on. So ultimately, they can't die. They die, and it's back.
It's not that Marvel.
It's not that in your face. It really it's in the culture. It's in the gestalt of all the stuff coming together. And from my point of view, it's been sort of natural. Nobody's been on the phone and going, oh, by the way, we're going to do this. Avengers Assemble was maybe the closest to what you're talking about, because we really wanted to have something that would tie really close into what the movie was doing. And
but the question is more about the stakes.
Yeah, more.
I mean, can Marvel today kill Tony Stark?
Oh,
yeah, ultimate sacrifice.
You kill Peter Parker.
He did in the Ultimate verse, but.
But even just small consequences, like Cyclops forgets to put on his glasses in the morning, blows off his eyebrows by accident, something like that, and then for the next 3 issues he has to, have no hair or whatever, and then comes back. But it is, can you actually, do you feel that you can actually write and draw to not drive, I guess, the industry, but drive the storyline, drive, that character's life?
Yeah, I mean, again, the Marvel Summits, 3-4 times a year, and all the writers and some of the artists come in the room. You should be more artists, by the way. And honestly, I'm not. Look, I will call it out if I don't like what I see. But I'm not shy about my opinion. But I've yet to be in that room where I've gotten any sense that anybody is sitting there going, you know what, there's another Fantastic Four movie coming up, you shouldn't do that, or, hey, we've got an Inhumans thing happening over here, maybe you should write more like that and not about this. Honestly, what makes the Marvel movies so great is that they know that content is king. They know that it's about following what the comics do and what the comics have done well over the years, and you spring off of that. They've got the cart and the horse in the proper relationship with each other, I think.
All right. Big crowd, everyone's going to try and stream out. Let's try and be orderly about that. And with that, I thank you for being so patient.